Did you know that Zack Snyder made an animated show for Netflix? I didn't until I was commissioned to review it by MS89, and once I started looking into it, I was really intrigued by it. The show was created by Zack Snyder, but it was also created by Jay Oliva, who has directed a lot of DC animated movies and shows over the years, and it also has Hans Zimmer as the composer. And the story is based on Norse mythology, which has become really popularized for modern audiences by Marvel with Thor, Loki, and Odin, and even the newer God of War games. So you'd assume it would be interesting to see how Zack Snyder handles this, especially when you take into account that this kind of aesthetic and concept is right in his wheelhouse. I mean, the guy can't seem to stop talking about mythic gods, even when he's talking about a human like Batman.
So Batman can't kill is canon. And they go like, well, don't put him in a situation where he has to kill someone. I'm like, well, you're protecting your god in a weird way, right? You're making your god irrelevant if he can't be in that situation.
Yeah, that actually happened.
We're not gods. We don't decide who lives and who dies.
So this should be an interesting show, or at the very least, a fun experiment. Spoiler alert, it turned out to be neither of those things. The story for Twilight of the Gods is centered around Sigrid, a Viking who has a husband named Leif. Thor kills Sigrid's family during her wedding, and she vows to take revenge and kill him. So let's start with the positive aspects of this show. If you've ever wondered what it would be like if Zack Snyder directed Thor, well, this may be the closest you'll ever get. And what he does with this more depraved version of Thor is actually pretty cool, and he's definitely much more violent. We also have Loki, and I really liked this version. He has a really great design, is very well voice acted, and his deviousness is very entertaining to see unfold. The best parts of the show, to me, all involved Loki. His menace and deceitfulness is so entertaining to watch, because he constantly offers Sigrid help, but you know that they shouldn't accept it. He's the god of mischief and deceit after all, but sometimes it seems really tempting to take him up on his offer, and I really enjoyed that aspect the most about this show. And he was definitely my favorite character of the series, and seeing a more messed up and villainous version of Thor was also pretty fun. So Snyder did a good job with these two. The action is also really graphic and bloody, and at one point they even fight a dragon, and that was pretty cool. There's a lot of childish traps that Zack Snyder falls for, but sometimes childish traps like Vikings fighting a dragon, that stuff is just undeniably cool. And it was cool here too. And I thought the art direction with some of the landscapes looked really nicely crafted. The animation in parts also looked pretty cool too. And, that's it. That was all the good stuff I had to say. Now it's time to talk about the bad stuff. And there is so much bad here, I don't even know where to start. The first thing is the story. It's a revenge story for Sigrid, but I never cared or felt emotionally invested with her character. I just found her to be incredibly dull, and I didn't like the voice for her either. Her delivery is just so deadpan and one note. She is voiced by Sylvia Hooks, and she speaks in such a boring, monotone voice the whole season, and she gives her so little personality. Take a listen for yourself.
I suppose he decided he wanted me more than he wanted heirs. Turned to stone and liquid fire. Their agony lives in the dwarf's weapons. I will make their rage my own. Until Odin took them. Now you wither, while the Aesir live forever young. Not until I have what I want, but when it's over, if you end Loki before he ends me, I won't mourn.
You hear the dullness, you hear the monotone. Whether that's her fault or she was being directed to talk that way by Zack Snyder, I don't know. Either way, it made for a very boring protagonist. Her husband Leif I found to be slightly more interesting, as he did have a bit more personality and charisma to him, but he still suffers from a lot of the same problems. And that is really indicative of the weak writing. The story is conveyed with tons of exposition, with characters constantly explaining all the plot points that are going on. They speak in expository monologues, and there is just this soullessness to the whole narrative. They're going on a dangerous, death-defying journey to kill Thor, the god of thunder. This should be an exciting journey, but somehow, this show made it a complete slog to sit through. And I do mean slog. Twilight of the Gods consists of 8 episodes, each of which are about 20 minutes long, with a longer final episode, and they just dragged. And it's not helped by the fact that the show is filled with so much pointless nudity. I don't think I have ever seen a movie or show that is this obsessed with forcing in so much excessive nudity and awkward sex scenes. Even the boys didn't feel this constant, and that's saying something. And the characters would make such stupid decisions. For example, in episode 4, Leif here severs the entrance for these guards during their escape, and rather than jump outside with his team, he instead jumps inside to be a martyr. Now maybe on the page this made sense, but visually and narratively, they didn't convey this correctly, because it just came across as a pointless sacrifice. I didn't for a second think that the only way out of this situation is for someone to stay behind. This situation hadn't escalated that badly. It could have been if it was staged properly or set up as such, but it wasn't.
Not a great plan.
And as for the side characters, you get some scenes with them that are occasionally nice or sort of charming, such as Egil here, who seemed the most laid back of the team, although his first scene was just another very gratuitous sex scene whilst he's spewing more exposition. And even though he has some likable moments later on, you still don't really care. And I honestly thought that the side characters were introduced and joined the team very quickly, and then we are just meant to accept them as part of the group. And although there is an attempt to give them some dimension, it didn't work in the end. Especially for what the show tries to do with some of those side characters. This is actually really creepy. In episode 5, the characters are telling stories around a campfire, and then our main character Sigrid goes to Theora, who seems like a younger and more innocent member of the team, and Sigrid speaks to her and then says, "Do you want a story of your own?" And I was like, oh, are we gonna get some bonding? Or is there going to be some common ground that the two share? Maybe a troubled past, or a similarly scarred childhood. Maybe a mentor kind of relationship. Or heck, maybe they're gonna go on a hunt. Whatever it is, are we finally going to get to know these side characters more? And then her and Sigrid have a threesome with her husband. Yep. More pointless sex scenes, but this one really felt especially gross and inappropriate. And it was at this point where I couldn't take it anymore, and I thought, you know what, Zack? You are just a freak. Because it was at this point where I felt that these are just his own sick fantasies, and I wouldn't be surprised if he partly made this show as an excuse to visualize them. And the sheer amount they tried to force in was just childish. And the childishness doesn't stop there. The show also has tons of swearing, and the amount of times they abused the C word was just insane and so gratuitous. So needless to say, the characters were not working for me. And going back to that campfire scene, this was a filler episode. I'm not sure why you need a filler episode when your episodes are 20 minutes long and have a grand total of 8, but here we are. The tales are told with more stiff and heavy exposition, and they have no relation to the main plot. And it was at this point I was thinking, could you just make the entire show a big action fest? That would have been better than the boring and horny slogfest that we spend most of our time with. And well, that leads us to the next problem. As good as the action can be at times, they aren't all equal in terms of quality, and a lot of them just became very meh. And even at its best, it wasn't anything mind-blowing. Even the final battle with Thor wasn't anything special. In fact, I found it to be pretty underwhelming. It just didn't know how to escalate the violence in creative ways like, say, Invincible does. The next thing I didn't like is the animation. Just like the action, it seems decent at first, but the more you look at it, you realize just how boringly simple it is. And what's especially puzzling is that sometimes the animation gets very choppy, and given how cheap the animation already looks, I'm surprised they decided to incorporate further cost-saving measures by cutting frames. Now there are times when the animation looks decent, but these moments are few and far between. The majority of the animation just looks so flat, and lacks colors and texture. It doesn't really make effective use of lighting, and there is no depth to these 2D images. If it made better use of shadows, then I think that would have helped the animation a great deal. But as is, everything is just too well lit. And what really confuses me is that Zack Snyder brings his signature slow motion into this show. Now usually he incorporates slow-mo because he really likes certain shots and wants to linger on them for a while. But why he wants to use slow-mo in Twilight of the Gods, I have no idea. The animation is just too basic and there's nothing to admire. I get the novelty of slowing down a really good looking shot, but this is not a good looking shot. The animation is so cheap and unimpressive that slowing it down just makes the cheapness even more apparent. And as the show went on, I became very numb to the blood. I feel that everything Snyder is trying to do with the blood here with this 2D animation, Invincible did far better. And this is so bizarre considering that one of the creators of this show is Jay Oliva. He is responsible for directing some great animation in the past, so how he got involved with this and offered up such middling results is just shocking. I was also surprised to learn that the music was done with Hans Zimmer as one of the composers, and the music never reached his level of quality to me. And I'm just gonna be honest, but the show ends in a way that is completely unfulfilling. So yeah, this is such a shame. I thought a show like this would be right up Zack Snyder's wheelhouse. Throw in Jay Oliva and Hans Zimmer, and on paper, this sounds like it could have been cool. But I was just bored through most of it. Many of Snyder's bad habits are here with hardly any of the good, and that's so disappointing because I know he has it in him. I mean, he gave the Justice League tons of personality and dedicated character moments where they talk and relate to each other, all the whilst having distinct personalities. It wasn't just exposition. And the action was incredible, and I'm so disappointed that none of that came through here. I'll say it again, the best parts of the show involved Loki and his deceitful intentions, and Thor was pretty fun when he showed up too, and the animation and action did have its time to shine here and there. And that's why I am going to give this show the only points that I'm about to. Zack Snyder's Twilight of the Gods gets a 3 out of 10. Such a disappointment. This was a very boring show to sit through, and I am looking forward to putting it behind me. As of right now, the show has been cancelled and is not getting a season 2, and that is for the best. Thanks so much for watching, and a big thanks to MS89 for commissioning this video. If you want to commission a movie or TV show review from me, then get in touch and we can work something out. And don't forget to click the like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and click that hype button too. And if you want to see how Zack Snyder's Justice League kicks the butt of Joss Whedon's Justice League, then click the link on your screens now. And I will see all of you very soon. Take care.